So, on this Friday edition of PFT Live, as we get you ready for Week 4 of the 2020 NFL season, there are some very good teams that have to go on the road this week, and one of the best teams in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks, has to go to Miami. All the way across the country, as far as you can go and still stay in the contiguous 48 U.S. states. From the upper left corner all the way down to the lower right corner, you've got Seattle at Miami, and the Seahawks defense, not very good. Ryan Fitzpatrick last Thursday night, pretty damn good. Do I smell a shootout coming in South Florida, Peter?
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I really do. And what I find interesting about games like this is, and I wish I had looked up the weather, Mike. Look up the weather for Miami Gardens, Florida, and let's see what the humidity is going to be on Sunday. Because what is going to happen in this game is that, the Seattle Seahawks are used to playing in a very, very nice climate where it's never really that hot. And it certainly wasn't, hasn't been for them so far this year. So now what happens if they come in, it's 88 degrees and really humid at kickoff, and you got 27 guys getting IVs at halftime? I'm almost not exaggerating, but anytime a game like this happens at this time of year, I think there's that chance. But I'll tell you the one other factor in this game that I think is going to be very interesting, and that is that, so Seattle's secondary, in my opinion, depending on what you have or what you don't have with Jamal Adams, there are some big receivers and some physical receivers on the Miami depth chart. And so those are the kind of receivers that typically could give this team trouble. Now, DK Metcalf is going to give the Miami secondary a lot of trouble. But I'm saying on the other side, you're tempted just to say, well, Russell Wilson's going to score in the 30s. And he probably will. But let's just see what happens on the other side as well.
Here's what's scheduled for Miami Gardens, Florida on Sunday. Temperatures in the mid-70s, 47% chance of precipitation. Humidity at kickoff, 72%. Winds out of the southeast at 13 miles per hour.
Not bad.
Now for a look at
Not
the weather
bad.
in your
It won't
neck
be
of the
awful.
woods. I can pivot to meteorology, Peter. That may be more fun. Stand in front of a green screen and pretend there's an actual country there and you're doing all this and you look over here and look down here. No,
Mike Cantori, Florio.
No, thank you. All right. So, look, I think the Seahawks defense stinks, and it's got to be driving Pete Carroll crazy. As we've said time and again this season, he's a student of not of Don Coryell, but of Bud Grant. And that's one of the reasons why I think Pete Carroll resisted this let Russ cook thing as long as he did, because you do put your defense on the field more often. You do put more stress on your defense, and you do potentially put yourself in a situation where your defense is among the worst in the NFL statistically. And that's where the Seahawks currently are. And that's what's so fascinating about this game. This screams out trap game. It just does. And, that's when you have your chance at taking down the great teams. The Chiefs aren't going to stumble against the Ravens or the Patriots. They're going to be fully focused and ready to go against the Ravens and the Patriots. They're going to stumble against the Chargers. They're going to stumble against the Raiders, against the teams where we just show up and win this game. And I think that's part of the challenge for the Seahawks this weekend. Pete Carroll keeping them focused on the task at hand and understanding that even though the Dolphins are not the 49ers or the Rams or the Packers or a team that they should be concerned about, they need to be concerned because, Peter, something I said earlier this week, with Russell Wilson having a dominant performance, a record-setting performance, usually in seasons like that, the team is winning easily. They're barely winning some of these games with Russell Wilson doing something unprecedented, because the defense just can't hold up its end of the bargain. So they are in danger this weekend. If Ryan Fitzpatrick is more Fitzmagic than Fitztragic, the Seahawks are in danger this weekend.
Add to this, just the fact that it's one of these 10 o'clock body clock games for the Seahawks. They'll be on an airplane for 6 hours, come to Miami, and then they'll play a 10 a.m. body clock game. They've got 4 of those this year, Mike. Obviously, they won their first one, in week 1. But now they've got 2 more after this in weeks 9 and 15. So and look, nobody's crying for anybody, in the NFL with how they travel. But I do think the only time I ever really pay attention to travel stories is when, for instance, like what the Rams just did, back and forth to the East Coast. That to me is a bit of a factor. But with Seattle, when you play so many times at 10 o'clock on your body clock, I think eventually that's going to catch up to you. Who knows if it'll be this week.
You mentioned week 9 and week 15. Week 9 is the Bills at 1 o'clock Eastern time. I got a feeling that between now and week 9, that game ends up 4:25 Eastern, Peter. I don't know the rest of the details for that
good
weekend.
Point. Very good point.
But that's a game that cries out for don't lump us in with the other 1 o'clock Eastern games. And what a stretch the Seahawks have coming out of their bye. At the Cardinals, the 49ers, at the Bills, at the Rams, and then the Cardinals. And you may look at it and say, oh, the Cardinals. No, the Cardinals went to Seattle and beat them last year when Seattle was trying to still win the division. That is a hell of a stretch. And that's the thing. They're going to be fully locked in for those games. They need to be fully locked in for this game, or that 3-0 is going to become 3-1. The Bills trying to avoid going 3-1 after that great come from behind after they gave up the huge lead win over the Rams on Sunday. They go to Vegas. They're the second team to play in the new stadium where the Raiders took down the Saints. Can Josh Allen keep this going? I mean, it's fascinating to see it. I said on Monday the difference between him and Patrick Mahomes, they do similar things, but Mahomes seems like he's in control. Allen seems like he's always on that edge of, the bike careening into a tree, and he still finds a way to get it done, although every once in a while the bike does hit the tree. Can Josh Allen keep this going at this rate that we've seen? Because he really has been spectacular.
Well, Mike, I think the big difference in Josh Allen, I talked to Tony Romo, who's one of his mentors this offseason, and I talked to Romo Sunday night, and he said, you got to hand it to a guy who's an NFL quarterback, and he basically comes to people like me and says, how can I be better? He said he really is hungry to be better. And so he worked with Jordan Palmer, his personal quarterback coach in the offseason, and he also got tutored by Tony Romo. And the one thing that he has done, Mike, this is a guy who was a 58% passer in college. He was a 56% passer in his first 2 years in the NFL. But he went to school so much on his mechanics this offseason that now he's a 71% passer through 3 games. And, you look at that and you say, well, it's only 3 games. And you're right. I'm not saying it's going to continue. But what I'm saying is if you watch the way that Josh Allen played in the first 2 years versus the way he plays now, you're right. He still is a little bit of the guy who's driving 10 miles an hour too fast on a hairpin turn on a mountainous road. However, just watch the ease in which he makes so many of his throws. He's not trying to throw it 106 miles an hour. He's not trying to be the Aroldis Chapman of football. I know that's hard for you to understand because you don't know who Aroldis Chapman is. But he's a guy who throws 101 for the Yankees. But he's not trying to be that anymore. He's just trying to be the guy who completes the pass with touch. That's one of the things he learned this offseason. And, Mike, as I say, I don't know if it's going to continue, but he's looking like a totally different quarterback through 3 games.
I agree with you. And one of the reasons why the completion percentage is up, he's got a great core of receivers for the first time in his life. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got John Brown. He's got Cole Beasley. Gabriel Davis has been a steal of a 4th-round pick who's done very well the past couple of weeks. Great catches against the Dolphins and against the Rams. Here's John Gruden, the guy who has to deal with Josh Allen this week, talking about the big guy from Wyoming who's coming into his own.
Allen is a problem for everybody. He can make the throws that you can dream about. He's powerful. He's got a rocket. He's hard to tackle. He's smart. He's everything you're looking for at the quarterback position, and they've surrounded him with an arsenal of good players, speed. And the acquisition of Diggs gives them a guy that can really hurt you down the field.
We do a matchup draft every Thursday, the matchups we're most interested in for the coming week, Peter. And I picked Derek Carr versus Josh Allen in part because of that vibe we just got from Gruden. If you play quarterback for John Gruden, he's always looking for a better quarterback elsewhere. And he's always, and this is something I've learned from Sims, he's always talking in the presence of his quarterback about some other great quarterback. And it's got to piss you off. See, I don't hesitate that time to say it. It's got to piss you off if you're Derek Carr. You don't want to hear about this other quarterback that he thinks is so great, because by implication it means you're not.
Can I tell you one of the lessons that Josh Allen learned this offseason in his conversations with Tony Romo? One of the things that Romo believes fervently is, you can complete a pass to a running back on a wheel route and he can gain 3 yards coming out of the backfield. And it's marked down as a completion, and he got 3 yards, so it's some positive yardage. But if you threw that ball to your running back in perfect stride, he can make 11 yards. So that's the difference. One of the big differences in Josh Allen, he's throwing the ball to his receivers where they can continue to make plays. Mike, his yards per attempt is up 2.5 yards per attempt. That's a gigantic thing. If your yards per attempt, I think it's 9.1. If your yards per attempt is 9.1, you know what that means? Every time you take a snap from center and you're in passing mode, you're getting a first down on average. So that is the big difference this year with Josh Allen. Much more accurate and much more knowledgeable about what it takes to run an offense and to keep things going on offense. Now, as you said it early, he's got to get a little bit more control of his temper, and he can't be, getting penalties for saying dumb things to officials and to other teams. So that is still a work in progress with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and look, this will be a good test for them. Coming off of a very emotional and draining win, both physically and in every other way possible, going on the road against a team that they saw get dismantled by the New England Patriots, can they keep their focus? Can they hold it together? Can they get to 4-0? All right. The Baltimore Ravens, after getting smacked in the mouth on Monday night by the Kansas City Chiefs, stay fairly close to home to take on a Washington team that is capable of being dangerous. Here is Lamar Jackson, the Ravens quarterback, on the challenge of bouncing back after losing to Kansas City on Monday night.
Is the sense this week that, it was a disappointing loss, but look, it's only week 3 and there's a lot of football left to play? Oh, yeah, for sure.
We hate the outcome of the game, but like you said, it's a lot of football left this season. We can't dwell on it. We got to move forward and focus on Washington now.
Is it cold enough for a winter coat? He's got the George Costanza Gore-Tex coat, Peter. I don't know. I don't go outside very much. Is there something going on that I don't know about?
Well, it's 56 degrees this morning in Brooklyn when I took the dog out for a walk about 6. So, and I didn't have Gore-Tex. I had a hoodie, but you could stretch and go to Gore-Tex in the East right now.
Look, this really is a challenge for the Ravens for one very specific reason. When I talked to John Harbaugh after they dismantled the Browns 38-6 to start the season, I said, what have you done to get your guys to forget about last year? Because that's the Bill Belichick play. No matter what happens last year, it's done. It's over. You're 0-0. You start over. Nothing that happened last year means a damn thing this year. Harbaugh said they haven't forgotten about it. They're talking about it. They want to talk about it. They want to live up to that standard. They want to be as good, if not better than they were last year. Okay, fine. That's the aspiration. You just got reminded that there's still a hell of a gap between you and the Chiefs. You just got reminded, as Lamar Jackson admitted after the game on Monday night, that the Chiefs are your kryptonite. I think it's going to take a lot. And Peter, there was a montage that was posted on the Ravens Twitter account of all these guys on the sideline at the end of the game trying to prop each other up, saying, "We will get it back. We'll get it back. We got to refocus. This is going to not be easy for them after being humbled at a time when they thought they were ready to establish themselves, when they were convinced that they were going to be able to handle the Chiefs, to get put back in their place. How do you, on a short week, and fortunately they don't have to go across the country, it's not a long trip at all, but how do you get yourself refocused to come back? And assert yourself with the kind of dominance we know they're capable of on the heels of having that tough showing? That's going to be, for me, the real challenge. Because if I recall correctly, I may need to go back and look at the 2019 schedule. I think after they lost to the Chiefs last year, I think the next week they lost at home to the Browns, which was far more of a stunning outcome.
Look, Mike, there's two things about both Monday night and about this coming Sunday that I think are really important for this team. On Monday, coming right out of the box for the third quarter, they're down 17 points. Ronnie Stanley, your franchise left tackle, misses a block, a block where he's one-on-one with Anthony Hitchens, the Chiefs linebacker. And Hitchens comes in and absolutely decleats Mark Ingram. Okay, that's at the beginning of the drive. At the end of the drive, they got 4th and 2. They're all excited. They're deep in Chiefs territory. They're going for it on 4th and 2. This is the play that's going to get them back in this game. They'll have scored right at the start of the second half. They'll be down 10. They'll be fired up. Everything's good. And what happens? Orlando Brown jumps. False start. They go back. They kick the field goal, a chippy field goal, instead of going for the touchdown and getting momentum. And I will just make this point about it, Mike. It's very easy and very convenient to say, man, Lamar Jackson, terrible, awful, cost us the game, just not there. He just wasn't there. If I'm John Harbaugh, I walk into my team on Wednesday morning or Zoom, however they're doing their team meetings, and I would say, guys, this loss is on everybody because we all stunk Monday night. And that, to me, when I was watching that game, I kept saying the unfortunate thing will be that, Lamar Jackson's going to get blamed for this. And look, he deserves his share of blame. Believe me, anybody who watched that game would understand that, how he underthrew Marquise Brown on the touchdown pass, and it was almost intercepted. But that's a team loss. That's one thing. The second thing I would say is when you play Washington, you got to be careful about being lulled into a false sense of security thinking that this is a lousy team. I mean, look at that defensive front. There aren't very many that are better. Now, they have had a couple of big injuries there, but still, that is a front that can give you trouble. And if they go into this saying, okay, we're fine, we're going to rebound and everything like that, they're going to get punched in the jaw by Washington. I can tell you. And so we'll see how they respond.
And it was last year after losing in Kansas City, a game they fell behind 17 points, tried to come back, and when it realized they're not in the same class as the Chiefs, they came home and they got beat 40-25 by the Cleveland Browns. So this isn't the classic trap game. This is the rebound game. And last year we saw what happened week 4 to the Ravens in that rebound game, and they need to be on guard. They need to dig deep on a short week to forget about the Chiefs and refocus. And when you look at what happened to the Ravens last year, it took them a while to hit their stride after losing those 2 games in a row. They almost lost to Pittsburgh without Ben Roethlisberger, had to take it to overtime, and just, games that they were winning by small margins, and then they started getting a little bit better, and then by November they were flat out dominant. It was really it culminated in that shredding of the Rams on Monday Night Football. But the Ravens, they've got their work cut out for them this week. They're a 13-point favorite, and if it all falls together and they play like they're capable of playing, Peter, they win by 20. But if they don't, Washington could beat them this week, or at least keep it very, very close.
Yes.
And I just don't know which way that's going to go for the Ravens because we don't know how they're going to recover from having that bubble burst in a very violent and dramatic and conspicuous way on Monday Night Football.
If I were the Ravens and if I were John Harbaugh, I'd almost want to face some adversity in this game. I really would, because sometimes it's too easy for Baltimore. Mike, we talked the other day, and this is the stat about Lamar Jackson and these Baltimore Ravens. Lamar started 27 games in his career. 6 times he's been behind at halftime. They're 0-6 in those games. He's won the other 21. So what that tells me is he's a great momentum player. He's a great play from ahead quarterback. Okay? And you got to play well in the first half to get ahead too. But what I'm saying is I want Lamar Jackson, if I'm John Harbaugh, if I'm Greg Roman, I want him to face some adversity. And I want him to conquer that adversity. That is what we have not seen him do.
And that's an excellent point for another important reason. To the extent that there are narratives that are hardening for this Ravens team that need to be changed, the most important one is 0-2 for Lamar Jackson in the postseason. So they need to start turning this around. They need to come from behind in the second half of a game. They need to do something to allow these isolated but very glaring defects in an otherwise stellar skill set. They've got to iron them out or they're never going to achieve what they want to achieve.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.